Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where people are constantly told that friendship is essential, that without friends you cannot be happy, successful, or even complete. Society paints solitude as something negative, something lonely, something to be afraid of. But the truth is, solitude is not a weakness, it is a strength. You don't always need friends to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. Sometimes, greatest growth, the deepest peace, and the strongest resilience are found when you walk your path alone. Being alone does not mean you are lonely. It means you have chosen independence over dependency, clarity over noise, and authenticity over compromise. In solitude, you discover who you really are without external influence, without pressure to fit in, without the masks that friendships sometimes force us to wear. Solitude is the birthplace of creativity, wisdom, and self-mastery. When you learn to be comfortable in your own company, you become unstoppable. Because the truth is, friends may come and go, your relationship with yourself will last forever. One of the most powerful gifts that solitude offers is the journey of self-discovery. When you are constantly surrounded by friends, companions, or social groups, your identity is often shaped, sometimes unconsciously, by the people around you. You begin to absorb their beliefs, their habits, preferences, and even their expectations. And without realizing it, you may start to live a version of life that is not truly your own. When you step into solitude, everything changes. In the quiet moments where no one is influencing you, you start to see yourself more clearly. You discover what truly excites you, what you genuinely dislike, what values you want to live by, and what direction your heart pulls you toward. Alone time strips away the external noise and reveals the core of who you are. Think about it, how many people choose careers, lifestyles, or even hobbies just because their friends are doing the same? How many people dress a certain way, act a certain way, or pretend to like things simply to fit in? The truth is, when you always seek belonging in a group, you risk losing yourself in the process. But solitude gives you the courage to stand apart, to say, "This is me, and I don't need anyone's approval to be who I am." Self-discovery also means confronting your own thoughts. When you're with friends, constant distraction, chatter, laughter, plans, activities. But when you're alone, your thoughts rise to the surface. Sometimes, those thoughts are uncomfortable. You might face insecurities, doubts, or fears. But here's the beauty. Solitude forces you to deal with them. It gives you the space to reflect, to ask questions like, what do I really want out of life? What do I believe in? What kind of person am I becoming? This reflection leads to identity building. Over time, you become clearer about your purpose, your strengths, and your weaknesses. Once you know yourself deeply, you stop living as a shadow of others. You start living as the truest, most authentic version of yourself. And authenticity is magnetic. People who know themselves radiate confidence because they're not pretending. They're not desperate for acceptance. They don't need a group to define them. They define themselves. That's why solitude is not loneliness. It's liberation. Path toward becoming someone who can stand firm in their own skin without the need for constant validation. So, when people say, "Don't you feel lonely without friends?" the answer is simple. Solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the fullness of self-awareness, self-respect, and self-love. And only when you know who you are in solitude can you truly bring your real self into the world. One of the most misunderstood aspects of human connection is the idea that we must depend on others to feel complete. Many people grow up believing that friends are the cure to sadness, the shield against loneliness, and the ultimate source of happiness. But here's the truth. When your emotions are tied too tightly to other people, you become fragile. You become like a leaf blowing in the wind. Wherever your friends' moods, behaviors, or decisions take you, that's where your feelings go. It's not freedom. That is emotional dependency. Solitude, however, teaches you something incredibly valuable, the art of emotional independence. When you spend time alone, you learn to create your own happiness, manage your own emotions, and stand firm even when nobody else is by your side. You stop waiting for a friend to cheer you up, and instead, you learn how to cheer yourself up. You stop relying on constant validation, and instead, you begin validating yourself. This shift is powerful because it means that your peace no longer belongs to anyone else. It belongs only to you. About how draining it can be when your well-being is constantly linked to others. If your friends are busy, you feel abandoned. If they forget to check on you, you feel unloved. If they disagree with you, you feel insecure. Constant dependency keeps you in an emotional prison where your joy is never fully yours. It's borrowed. Solitude breaks those chains. It forces you to ask, can I be happy without company? Can I be calm without someone reassuring me? Can I find joy in simply being with myself? And when the answer becomes yes, you step into a kind of emotional freedom that few ever taste. Emotional independence also builds resilience. Life is unpredictable. Friends may move away, relationships may end, circumstances may change. If your emotional stability is tied to them, you collapse when they're gone. But when you've mastered solitude, running through the park, when you've trained yourself to be emotionally steady without external support, you become unshakable. You might feel pain, yes, you won't fall apart. You'll bend, but you won't break. Another gift of emotional independence is clarity in relationships. Running through the park, when you don't need friends to survive emotionally, you stop clinging to unhealthy ones. You no longer tolerate toxic behavior just because you're afraid of being alone. Instead, you begin to choose relationships from a place of strength, not weakness. You say, I enjoy your company, I don't need it to feel whole. That mindset creates healthier, more balanced friendships if you ever decide to keep them. And here's the best part: emotionally independent people are attractive, not in terms of looks, but in terms of energy. They radiate calmness, confidence, and self-sufficiency. They walk into a room and you can feel it. They are complete with or without anyone else. That kind of person is not desperate, not clingy, not needy. They are whole. So, when solitude teaches you emotional independence, it is not robbing you of joy. It is giving you the strongest form of joy, the one that cannot be taken away. Happiness rooted in others is temporary. Happiness rooted in yourself is eternal. That is why solitude is not loneliness. It is power. It is the training ground where you build the kind of strength that no friend, no crowd, and no relationship can give you. Emotional independence is the key to freedom, and solitude is the door that leads you there. One of the most underrated benefits of solitude is the way it transforms your focus and productivity. Let's be honest, friends are a blessing in some ways, but they can also be the biggest distraction. When you're constantly surrounded by people, your attention is split in 1,000 directions. There are endless conversations, unplanned hangouts, group pressures, countless hours spent doing things that might be fun, but are rarely meaningful in the long run. When you choose solitude, you reclaim something priceless: time and mental energy. Suddenly, the hours you once spent keeping up with others are now yours. What you do with that time can change the entire trajectory of your life. You can pour it into your dreams, your work, your passions, your growth. Solitude sharpens your focus because there's no background noise, no external drama, no constant pull towards social obligations. It's just you, your mind, and your mission. Think about the great achievers of history: writers, inventors, leaders, philosophers. Many of them spent long periods in solitude, not because they hated people, but because they understood that greatness requires undivided attention. You cannot build a masterpiece while your phone keeps buzzing with group messages. You cannot write your story, build your business, or design your dream if your energy is scattered across 10 different social commitments. Solitude creates a mental space where creativity flourishes and productivity skyrockets. Distraction is the enemy of success, and friends, whether they mean to or not, can often be the source of that distraction. A quick chat turns into hours. Small hangout eats up your whole evening, and soon days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months of unproductive living. Alone time removes that cycle. It allows you to direct your focus like a laser beam toward the things that actually matter. Focus is not only about doing more, it's about thinking more clearly. Solitude gives you room to reflect on your goals, evaluate your progress, and make better decisions. When you're alone, your mind slows down, your thoughts settle, and your priorities become visible. You begin to ask yourself, am I on the right path? Am I spending my time wisely? Am I moving toward my dreams or away from them? These questions rarely arise in the noise of constant socializing. They appear in the silence of solitude. And let's not forget productivity. When you're with friends, you often follow the flow of the group. But when you're alone, you create your own flow. You set your schedule, you set your pace, you set your standards. You become accountable not to anyone else, but to yourself, and that's where true discipline is born. In solitude, you learn to finish what you start, to work with consistency, to push through resistance without needing external motivation. It is in these quiet hours, away from chatter and distractions, that books get written, businesses are built, skills are mastered, and ideas are born. Running through the park. It is in solitude that you gain the competitive edge, because while others are busy filling their time with constant socializing, you are investing yours into growth. So, when people ask, don't you get bored being alone? The real answer is, solitude is never boring when you are building something meaningful. It is never dull when you're creating, learning, and growing. In fact, solitude is where focus and productivity transform from mere words into a lifestyle. And that's the ultimate truth. Friends might fill your hours, solitude can fulfill your destiny. One of the most exhausting aspects of friendships is not the companionship itself, but the baggage that often comes with it. We like to think friendships are simple and pure, but in reality they are often filled with drama, misunderstandings, unspoken obligations, and constant expectations. Whether it's subtle competition, jealousy, gossip, or the pressure to always be available, these things slowly drain your energy without you even noticing. Now imagine what happens when you step into solitude. Suddenly you are free from drama, free from comparisons, free from the invisible strings that pull you in different directions. You no longer have to waste mental energy analyzing what someone meant in a text, worrying about being left out, or wondering if your loyalty is being questioned. Solitude cuts through all that noise. It creates a peaceful, drama-free space where you can live life on your own terms. Think about how much unnecessary stress comes from friendships. You're expected to always say yes when invited somewhere, even if you're tired or busy. You feel guilty if you don't check in often enough. You're judged if you choose a path that doesn't align with the group. And sometimes, running through the park, you're even forced into conflicts that have nothing to do with you, just because you're part of a circle. These expectations pile up until you no longer know if you're living for yourself or for others. Solitude removes those invisible chains. You don't have to explain your choices, justify your absence, or defend your opinions. You get to live with complete authenticity. Another heavy weight in friendships is drama. The petty arguments, the subtle rivalries, the emotional roller coasters. Even the closest friends can fall into cycles of jealousy, resentment, or comparison. You may notice that someone is happy when you succeed, but secretly happier when you fail. Or that the person who claims to support you is also the one holding you back. This drama might not always be loud, but it's there, like background noise, constantly buzzing in your life. Solitude eliminates that background noise. In the silence of being alone, you realize how peaceful life can actually be. You don't need to manage anyone else's emotions. You don't need to walk on eggshells. You don't need to sacrifice your mental space for someone else's chaos. That freedom is priceless. But here's the deeper truth. Freedom from expectations allows you to truly know your worth. When you are not constantly bending yourself to fit in, you begin to live more honestly. You stop being the friend version of yourself and start being your real self, running through the park. And if you ever do let people back into your life, it will not be out of pressure. It will be out of choice. You'll be able to say, I don't need your approval to feel whole. I am complete with or without you. That mindset transforms every relationship you'll ever have. And let's not forget the ultimate irony. Many people cling to friendships to escape loneliness. They end up feeling lonelier because of the drama and unmet expectations those friendships bring. On the other hand, solitude may look lonely from the outside, but inside it is filled with peace, clarity, and strength. Freedom is not just about doing what you want. It's about being free from what you don't need. And solitude gives you that freedom in its purest form. So, the next time you feel pressured by the expectations of friends or weighed down by endless drama, remember this: solitude is not punishment. It is liberation. It is the clean air your soul has been waiting to breathe. One of the greatest truths about solitude is this: gives you the rare opportunity to build a deeper connection with yourself. Most people spend their entire lives trying to connect with others, seeking approval, companionship, love, or validation. But very few take the time to connect with the one person who will be with them from birth until death, themselves. When you are always surrounded by friends, you are constantly pulled outward. Your attention is on what others are saying, what others expect, and how others perceive you. You spend your energy maintaining bonds, keeping conversations alive, and adjusting your behavior to keep everyone comfortable. In this process, you often forget to ask, but what do I truly feel? What do I truly need? Who am I when no one is watching? Solitude is where those answers begin to surface. In the silence of being alone, you start to hear your own voice, the one that gets drowned out by the noise of constant social interaction. You hear the whisper of your intuition, pulse of your deepest desires, and the rhythm of your inner truth. Solitude creates space for self-reflection, self-dialogue, and self-acceptance. Let me give you an example. Many people fear silence. They fill every gap with noise, music, scrolling, chatting, calling friends, because silence forces them to face themselves. But solitude asks you to sit in that silence, to look inward, and to ask questions you may have been avoiding. Am I happy with where I am? Am I being honest with myself? Am I living according to my values, or just following the crowd? These questions may feel uncomfortable at first, but they are the doorway to transformation. Deeper connection with yourself also means learning how to enjoy your own company. Think about how powerful that is, to go for a walk, eat a meal, or sit in a quiet room without needing someone else there to validate the moment. When you can enjoy being with yourself, you eliminate the fear of loneliness. You stop chasing people just to feel whole. Instead, you radiate peace because you are at home within yourself. And here's another truth: when you connect deeply with yourself, you develop self-awareness. awareness. You start recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, your triggers and patterns, your dreams and limitations. This awareness gives you control over your life. Instead of being reactive, blown around by other people's opinions, you become intentional. You start making choices that align with your inner values rather than external pressures. The connection doesn't stop at awareness, it evolves into self-love. When you spend time alone, you learn to appreciate yourself, flaws and all. You learn to forgive yourself for mistakes, to encourage yourself when you fall, and to celebrate yourself when you win. You become your own best friend, your own guide, your own cheerleader. And once you've built that bond with yourself, no betrayal, no rejection, no abandonment from others can ever break you. Ironically, the people who fear solitude the most are often the ones who don't truly know themselves. They run from silence because silence reveals their emptiness. But those who embrace solitude discover the opposite. They realize they are not empty, they are overflowing with ideas, creativity, wisdom, and strength that only emerge when they are brave enough to sit with themselves. So, deeper connection with yourself that solitude brings is not just about peace, it's about power. Because once you know yourself, you can no longer be manipulated. Once you value yourself, you no longer settle for less. And once you love yourself, you no longer chase love desperately from others. That is the secret of solitude. Teaches you that the most important relationship in your life is not with your friends, your partner, or even your family. It is with yourself. And when that relationship is strong, everything else becomes easier. Life is not easy. It is filled with challenges, obstacles, heartbreaks, disappointments, and storms that test every fiber of our being. And here lies one of the greatest gifts of solitude. Builds strength and resilience. The kind of strength that doesn't crumble when life gets tough. Kind of resilience that allows you to bend without breaking. When we rely too heavily on friends for comfort, advice, or emotional rescue, we unknowingly weaken ourselves. We train our minds to believe, I can only handle this if someone is there for me. But what happens when that someone isn't there? What happens when the friend moves away, becomes busy, or simply chooses not to support you in your darkest hour? If your strength is borrowed from others, it disappears when they do. Solitude forces you to discover an inner reservoir of strength that most people never tap into. When you face struggles alone, running, you learn to dig deeper. You learn to calm your own fears, solve your own problems, and carry your own weight. Every time you survive a challenge without leaning on others, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you thought. Proof becomes confidence, and that confidence becomes resilience. Resilience is not built in comfort. It is built in solitude. Think about it. The tree that stands alone in the open field grows stronger roots than the one shielded in a forest. It has no choice but to withstand the storms by itself, and in doing so, it becomes unshakable. In the same way, solitude teaches you how to weather life's storms without collapsing. It forces you to face fear, endure silence, and embrace discomfort until those things no longer scare you. Another key aspect of resilience built through solitude is self-reliance. When you walk alone, you stop waiting for others to fix things for you. You stop expecting rescue. Instead, you ask yourself, how can I rise above this? How can I solve this problem? How can I stand tall even when the world feels heavy? This mindset transforms you from a dependent person into a warrior. Someone who knows they can survive even the harshest conditions. Strength in solitude is not just about survival. It's about mental toughness. Alone time trains your mind to be still, to be focused, running through the park, and to endure without constant stimulation. Many people today cannot even sit alone in silence for 10 minutes without feeling restless. Those who master solitude develop patience, discipline, and grit. They learn that they don't need instant gratification or constant entertainment to feel complete. That ability to sit in stillness is a form of strength that very few possess. And let's not forget emotional resilience. Solitude teaches you to handle loneliness, rejection, and loss without falling apart. It teaches you that pain is a part of life, suffering is optional. You realize that you can feel sadness without being destroyed by it, that you can feel fear without being paralyzed by it, and that you can feel disappointment without losing hope. That's resiliency, the ability to feel deeply and still move forward. Ironically, people who fear solitude often think they're avoiding weakness by clinging to friendships. But in reality, they are avoiding strength, because true strength is forged in the fire of aloneness. It's when no one is clapping for you, no one is comforting you, no one is guiding you, and yet you keep going, that you become unbreakable. And here's the ultimate truth: friends may come and go, circumstances may change, but the strength you build in solitude stays with you forever. It becomes your armor, your anchor, your foundation. When you can walk alone, you no longer fear anything. Not loss, not rejection, not failure. Because you know you can stand even in the silence. So, solitude is not weakness. Solitude is training. It is where you forge the kind of strength that no amount of company can give you. It is where you become resilient enough to face anything life throws your way. And when you rise from solitude with that strength, you will never again feel powerless, because you'll know that even alone, you are enough. One of the most misunderstood lessons of solitude is this: choosing to be alone does not mean you hate people, does not mean you are destined to live in isolation forever. What solitude really teaches you is the power of selectivity, the ability to choose relationships from a place of strength rather than from a place of need. Running through the park. Most people surround themselves with friends not because those friendships are meaningful, but because they are afraid of being alone. They fear silence. They fear emptiness. They fear the judgment of society that says, if you don't have a big circle of friends, something must be wrong with you. And so, out of fear, they settle. They allow shallow, toxic, or one-sided friendships to occupy their life simply because the thought of solitude feels scarier than the burden of unhealthy company. But when you embrace solitude, something profound shifts. You learn that you don't need anyone to feel complete. You discover peace in your own presence. You realize that you can eat alone, walk alone, travel alone, and still feel whole. Once you've reached that level of independence, you no longer settle for just anyone. You stop chasing people. You stop begging for attention. You stop tolerating disrespect. Instead, you become selective. You begin to value quality over quantity. You would rather have one deep, meaningful relationship than 10 shallow ones. You would rather invest in someone who truly understands and respects you than be surrounded by a crowd that doesn't care about your growth. Solitude trains you to see relationships not as a necessity, but as a choice. And here's the irony: when you stop needing people, right people are drawn to you. Why? Because neediness repels, but wholeness attracts. When you walk into a relationship already complete, you bring peace instead of desperation, confidence instead of insecurity, authenticity instead of pretense. The people who enter your life then are not there because you need them. They are there because you want them. That's what makes those connections stronger, healthier, and longer lasting. Selective relationships also mean you protect your energy. Everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves to know your struggles, your dreams, your heart. When you've spent enough time in solitude, you become careful about who you let in. You realize that relationships are not just about fun, they are about influence. People you allow into your circle either lift you higher or drag you lower. Solitude gives you the clarity and courage to say no to those who drain you and yes, only to those who align with your values. Another powerful truth is this: selective relationships create deeper intimacy. When you are no longer spread thin across dozens of surface-level connections, you can invest deeply in the few people who truly matter. You listen more, you share more, you grow more together. Those bonds are not built out of fear of loneliness. They are built out of choice, out of respect, and out of genuine alignment. And perhaps the greatest gift of all is this: when you can stand alone, every relationship becomes richer because it is free from dependency. You are not clinging to anyone out of fear. You are not demanding constant reassurance. You are not afraid of losing people because you know you will be fine even without them. Freedom creates relationships rooted in love, not need, in authenticity, not desperation. So, power of selective relationships is the final jewel that solitude gives you. It teaches you that you don't need many people running through the people. It shows you that being alone is better than being surrounded by the wrong crowd. And it proves that the best way to honor yourself is to protect your space, guard your energy, and only welcome those who bring true value into your life. In the end, solitude is not about rejecting relationships. It's about refining them. It's about choosing wisely, living authentically, and remembering that the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself. Once that relationship is strong, every other relationship becomes a bonus, not a requirement. So, my friends, solitude is not a curse. It is not loneliness. And it is certainly not weakness. It is the greatest opportunity you will ever have to meet the most important person in your life, yourself. It is in solitude that you find clarity, resilience, and peace. It is in solitude that you sharpen your focus, connect with your true identity, and discover that you were whole all along. The world may tell you that you need friends to feel complete, but the truth is, you do not. Friends can add joy to your life, yes, but they are not the source of your happiness. That source lies within you. And once you learn to walk alone, running through the park, you will never again fear being left behind, because you will know that you already carry everything you need inside your own heart. So embrace solitude, celebrate it, learn from it. Because when you can stand strong in your own company, you are no longer dependent, you are free. And that freedom, that strength, that deep inner peace is the real secret to a fulfilled life.